I'm afraid that I don't much care for movies anymore, and as somebody who originally went to school because I loved movies so much and I was so excited about them that I had to learn how to make them myself, this is a pretty big thing. But as I've sat in this feeling, as I've analyzed this feeling, as I've really analyzed myself, I've realized that it's not even so much that I don't like movies anymore. It's that I don't like the large majority of new and current movies at this point in time when I'm recording in late 2025. And there are a good number of reasons for this. There's a couple of reasons that I've also weighed in and I've decided aren't the thing. I want to discuss where I'm feeling because I feel like I'm not the only one, but I also feel like it is not nearly talked about as much as it could be. A lot of my best moments as a young child center around myself and friends, either watching a movie or watching a TV show and discussing that, and especially things like mystery stories or sci-fi stories, discussing how we think it's going to end. All of that stuff was very interesting to me. So when I got into college and I realized that you can study film like on purpose, like as your major, I had to do it. I had to do it, despite the fact that my family didn't necessarily support that decision. But I have loved movies. So much of my channel is not necessarily about movies, but it is about the way that media shapes our impression of the world, our impression of ourselves, what we think is possible. If we ourselves are artists, it shapes a lot of the art that we create, the stories that we tell. It very much lets us know what is possible, both in a real literal sense and also in a fiction that you can write and create sort of sense. And obviously nowadays, when almost everybody has some sort of a camera, it has never been easier for people to make movies. And truly, I am excited about that aspect of it. Some of the only things that are like modern or new that I can watch are things that are made by smaller groups. And initially what I was thinking was that like one of the big issues was just like my attention span. And I will do admit, ever since I've been on TikTok, my attention span is something that I've struggled with. But here's the thing, I can still watch a number of old like 1930s, 1940s, 1950s films that are all incredibly long. And yes, some of them do have an intermission, and I do think that we should bring that back. Hot take, I think intermission needs to be present in any movie over 3 hours. If you can't like get your audience into the mood and then get them back into it after the intermission, then like what are you even doing? Because people in the 50s and 60s could do that. I very strongly believe that for a number of reasons, not one like one of the biggest being like people's bladders. I'm sorry, who can go 3 hours? Not a hydrated person, I'm sorry. But I was thinking that yeah, it's gotta be my attention span. It's not though. Like, yes, I do think intermissions in older films can be helpful, but not every older film that I watch is long enough to count to have an intermission in the middle, and sometimes I just skip through the intermission and keep watching. Like, I can sit there and watch movies on Turner Classic Movies where I know that there's no commercials and that there's not going to be any breaks, and that I can't stop it because we don't have the DVR feature. So like that, I can just sit there and watch a movie. And I think that so much of it is about how a lot of times in the past, you really had to be diligent in making sure that every shot that was in your movie needed to be in your movie. Like, physical film is expensive, and unless you're a big name director who is on a really big project, you are not going to just be able to burn through reels of film. Like, because it's not just when you're recording it and doing all of these takes that you're using up film, it's also the reels when they get sent out. There's so many extra things that make stuff like that more expensive. And so back then, I think that directors really did think a lot more about what they were including. Why is this included? And I do think that sometimes those things can seem slower, but now, I don't know, there are a lot of modern directors who believe that like slow pace is the key to building suspense, and that is just the key to me mentally checking out of your movie, my friend. One of the other things that I briefly considered, but I'm pretty sure now that it's not, is just like superhero or just like franchise burnout. But the thing is like there have been a number of superhero and franchise type movies that I have seen and I have liked, and like yes, they are hard to focus on and things of that nature because they have all of the things about modern cinema that I don't like, which we're going to get into in a second, the reasons why I do have problems. It's not like a complete non-starter for me. It's not like I cannot watch a film if it is about a big franchise thing that I'm a little burned out on. I am burned out on mediocrity that I know is never going to deliver a satisfying payoff, which is what I feel a lot of the Star Trek stuff is. Like, the really nice thing about old episodes of Star Trek that has made it so infinitely rewatchable is the ability to have, like, a storyline, maybe not necessarily finish in the 47 minutes or whatever runtime of that episode, but at least you are to a place where you feel satisfied. I think a lot of focus on streaming has just like keep you watching, end on a cliffhanger, and that means that the only episode that I fully get any catharsis out of is the final episode. And yes, there are a couple of newer Star Trek shows where they're not doing like as much overarching plot, and those are the ones that I can watch. I think very much streaming has very much impacted TV shows, and I guess, yes, ostensibly this is about movies, but it's also about TV shows. I have a really hard time watching a lot of TV shows nowadays as well. I think for very similar reasons, and like the big thing that really gets me is formulaicness, something that I was hinting at the beginning. It's not very few people are willing to take a big risk anymore, or if they take a big risk and fans don't like it immediately, they really quickly retcon it, retroactively remove it from continuity, for those of you who are not in a fandom space. So much stuff is formulaic, so much stuff is going back to like the kind of trend of the 80s where it's designed to sell tie-in merch, where you've got everybody in a different outfit, a very costume style outfit in almost every episode, or things of that nature that I'm like, you're just trying to sell merch, my friend. I am on to you. Formulaicness in not being willing to take as many risks as, like, this whole fear of the anti-woke, anti-DEI has really resulted in some of the worst media in recent history. Like, the stuff that has been good recently is the stuff that has really pushed back on that, but a lot of places, a lot of people, a lot of directors, a lot of production companies do not want to upset either extreme. They want to be able to cater to anybody, even people that are on wildly different sides of a perspective, and it's very difficult to do that and make good media. You have to be willing to take risks. You have to be willing to alienate your audience. You have to be willing, especially if you're trying to make something good, is make an episode of a show that isn't necessarily great in and of itself because it contributes to a better whole. But also, I think because a lot of the production companies have treated television shows on streaming as, like, a lot of them really start to stink over time because there's considerably less effort put in as the show progresses. They just try to keep making more money off of it. Like, you know that these shows are going to be canceled in 3 seasons. You know that they're not going to deliver on these plot things that they're suggesting about. There is so much going on in that space that is just yucky to me. I want to circle back to things that are both movies and streaming and TV. Actors and actresses. One of the things that I realize about old TV, old movies, is that yes, there are some people that you could see at a certain point in time were getting cosmetic treatments. It was by no means the large majority, if not all, of the people on screen. I'm sorry, my brain cannot focus on your face if it is not emoting the way that it expects it to be. You just come off as false. And so many people, like, we've spoken about, like, the iPhone face or whatever you want to call that phenomenon where, like, somebody that is in a period piece does not look like somebody that could have existed in the 1800s. They have a very modern, like, face-tuned face. People aren't trying to make themselves look like the best version of themselves. They're trying to make themselves look like the best filter possible from their features, and my brain does not jive with that. It has a very hard time when people have that, like, stiff wooden face, and I see so much of the blame thrown at women, but there are so many actors as well who just, their faces do not move, do not emote the way that they need to. And my brain really needs 2 things. I am realizing to engage on things. I need to have real human faces, real human bodies, people that look like people, not people who look like the face-tuned version of an alien freak. But also, so much dependence on CGI, and AI is only going to make it worse as companies are like, oh, we don't even need to hire all these expensive CGI artists, we can just go with AI, and it's going to result in AI slop quality movies, but even if they did manage to make it look good, like CGI, when most of the film is CGI and most of the backgrounds aren't real, or the backgrounds are composited together of like a small, like a quarter of a normal natural surroundings and the other 3/4 of the frame are CGI'd in, my brain just loses interest. Like, one of my all-time favorite movies, it's the Koyaanisqatsi, is it called the Iskatsi trilogy? 3 films, starting with Koyaanisqatsi. It's the Katsi trilogy, but especially Koyaanisqatsi, the first one, it is just visuals of Earth, like just people and cars and natural environments, and then there's music, and there's no words, there's no plot, there's no dialogue, there's nothing. It is just the beauty of the natural world. I can sit there and vibe out to that for hours on end because it is real things and it is being presented in a very artistic, artful way in which the symbolism of the music, when it swells, when it's quiet, versus like the scenes that it's displaying. Is it displaying the natural world? Is it displaying people? Is the action fast? Is the action slow? Is the camera lingering? Is the camera bouncing all over the place? All of these things are used to tell a story. And like the fact that my brain can, how long is this movie? Because it's not short. Katsi trilogy, Koyaanisqatsi, which means life out of balance, by the way. That's a good point. Until now, you've never really seen the world you live in. Such a good movie. Music by Philip Glass. So it's like 86, 87 minutes. So yeah, yes, it is a very short movie, but for a movie that doesn't have a plot, it doesn't have characters, it doesn't have like a narrative, so to speak, it is just visuals and music, that is a pretty long thing to focus on. That tells me that it is not my focus that is a predominant problem of this. And again, like, as I've been realizing more that it's not that I don't like movies, it's that I don't like a lot of things about modern movies and modern television. I have been watching a lot more. Like, I've been watching Golden Girls for half the day, and just the way they could tell a story that had both comedic highs, comedic lows, even with, you know, having to factor in gaps for commercials and things of that nature, you could still pick up the narrative thread and you didn't lose anything by having that break. Like, there's so many things that old media was and was capable of being because the whole mindset around it, like, yes, a lot of it has been about profit, but also up until a certain point, there was a bigger focus about making a good artistic piece still. And like, one of the things, like, one of the all-time discussions that is like never going to die within film is like, is having a studio type system ultimately devaluing the industry, or is it boosting the industry up by like occasionally giving some really good directors an opportunity to really flex their muscles once they prove themselves? I mean, personally, I don't think that's necessarily a good thing, because they still very much control who has access to that funding and what they use it for. And I think especially going forward, we are going to see a change in how the purse strings are operated. I do love that it has become so much more accessible to make movies on your own. I think some of the purest art right now is coming out of independent people, independent creators who are just making stuff in their free time for fun, for love, for pleasure, even if it doesn't necessarily have as high to a degree of special effects. A lot of times the less money means that you have to use practical effects. You have to use like illusion, you have to use match cuts and things of that nature, because maybe you can't show as much of the action. I think very much, especially in horror, as there's been a bigger push to show more and more of the gore on screen, that a lot of horror directors have forgotten the, like, you know, sometimes it is better to allude to something. It is better to do a match cut away to the moon when the eyeball is being cut a la Un Chananlu, and like, there are some directors who are really still making good, interesting stuff. I am a huge Guillermo del Toro fan. I really love a lot of his films, and I really need to actually sit down and watch Frankenstein one of these days. I am a little bit afraid that, just based on virtue of the era that he is still making stuff in, that it still may not capture my attention the way it used to. And I do admit that, like, one thing that has hurt is actually going to film school. Like, I cannot turn off the part of my brain that analyzes media, and because of that, it is a lot harder for me to like something that is bad, unless it's something like The Room, where it's like comedically bad. I do think that yes, everybody should learn more about the type of media they consume, all types of media they consume. It is a big like hallmark of my channel and what I'm aiming to do here, but also on the same token, it does kind of make it harder for you to just turn your brain off and watch a bad movie. Like, there's always this part of my brain that is trying to be like, okay, this could have been a good movie if they just did this, that, and the other. Like, I would love to just be able to turn off my brain and watch a movie, but inevitably I will be taking notes the whole time in case I want to write something or say something, which part of that, in fairness, is me needing to share all of my opinions of a piece of media with the world in one way or another. And like, if I get truly excited or inspired about something, if something actually moves me, I want to have like, I want to share it with people, but also at the same token, pulling fingernails to try and watch a movie that is just, honestly, mediocre ones are worse than bad for me because of the room for opportunities. I have seen one really good movie recently that I really liked. Actually, the whole family liked, which is very rare because we have very different tastes. But Thelma, it is about a lady, like an elderly lady who has her identity stolen. And she goes in this mission to find the person who stole her identity after nobody would help her with it. And it's very much an action comedy, but also it was surprisingly like sincere. The emotions, you see a lot of interactions between the family and like them learning how to take care of themselves and each other. And it's just really good. It's like one of the best things that I've seen recently, but I just wish so many more films had more heart like that. How did that movie actually come to fruition? 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. Oh, director Josh Margolin. The story is based on the real-life experiences of his grandmother. Obviously fictionized, because I don't think she... Oh, it was through Magnolia Pictures. It was an independent film, of course. Like, I knew that there was no way that that came out through, like, an actual... But, like, it was real actors with real faces and, like, real ways of interacting with each other, and most of the stuff wasn't CGI. It was brilliant. My brain loved it. I actually almost did a video on that when we watched it, but I didn't know that enough people would care. Anyway, that's all I have to say about this. This is kind of a little bit of a weird video, because I made the Ned video. That was a long video about a serious subject. I'm getting ready to make a video about Colleen Ballinger because I feel like I have to for a number of reasons, and I just needed something that was a little bit of a break. I'm also working on editing a video that I've probably been promising for a while. It's on Dear Reader by Taylor Swift. I originally filmed that before Life of a Showgirl, but so much has happened, so much has changed, la-da-da-da-da. I had a lot of other things to get out while people were still interested in them, so now I'm kind of going back to the backlog of things that I recorded in the past. So yeah, hopefully, editing is always a big challenge with me. I think I've mentioned that before, but yeah, hopefully I entertain some people with this and you like this. If so, I may do more videos like it. Anyway, my name is AerinMoriarty. I love discussing pop culture, popular media, pop music, especially Taylor Swift, and the ways that it influences us, how a lot of this art has deeper meanings that a lot of people are willing to accept. I also reject the common narratives that a lot of women's art is primarily about men in their lives. I almost exclusively analyze works from the perspective that a lot of these people are their own muses, and they're talking about things like their fandom and their career, their relationship with the industry, their relationship with their family and friends, things of that nature, because so many songs are so layered and there's a lot of meaning there that gets ignored because there's a man involved. Anyhow, I am still a very small channel, so your likes, comments, and subscriptions do help me out a ton. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.